spokesperson for Massachusetts. I'll do that again. My name is Paul Craney. I'm the spokesperson for Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance. I very much appreciate you guys joining. We have about 7 family farmers who represent very long-standing farms in Massachusetts. Well over 850 years worth of generational farming on this call. One of the oldest farmers here is actually Ben Farnum, which started his farm before the founding of our country. And one of the newest farmers is Theresa Cohen, who started 4 years ago in 2018. I do want to let you guys know, so the oldest business in Massachusetts is a family farm. The oldest business in the United States is that family farm from Massachusetts. So Massachusetts has a very rich history of supporting our farmers and people that produce food. Last July of 2021, a shockwave kind of hit the Northeast, which is Horizon Milk canceled ties with about 100 dairy farmers overnight. This was a huge impact to those farmers, as you can imagine. That's their primary source of income. And when Horizon pulled out of New England, they cited the high cost of production and the high cost of transportation. And our family farmers here today are going to talk about why the graduate income tax is not going to be beneficial to what they've been trying to do for many generations. Most farms obviously don't clear over $1 million. Some do, but almost all the farms at some point sell off some property, which they reinvest into their family farms. They kind of repurpose their farms. They'll reinvent themselves. And obviously this tax will have a big impact on them. And that's in addition to everything else that's been hitting family farms recently. The high cost of fuel, the high cost of fertilizer, having a hard time finding workers who are familiar with agriculture, transportation. These are all things that more recently have been impacting family farmers. So having a graduate income tax impacting them is not a step in the right direction. This week is obviously Earth Day, so we're trying to coincide with Earth Day, present something that's tangible to the people of Massachusetts for Earth Day week. And with that said, I'm going to open it up to, I'll let you guys know the order of speakers and then let them speak, and then we'll take questions at the end. The first speaker will be Ben Farnum from North Andover, Boston Hill Farm, founded in 1740. The next speaker after that will be Leo. And Leo, I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your Greek last name, Cakounes. Thank you. Cakounes. From Harwich, Cape Family Supply and Cranberry Company, one of the largest, if not the largest, organic cranberry farms on Cape Cod. And then Bob Beckwith of Granville, Hilltown Pork, founded in 1980. Matt Fitzgerald of Methuen's Mann Orchard, founded in 1877. Just a side note, you can see New Hampshire from Matt's property. We do have Leon Ripley, who will speak after that, from Granville, founded in 1840. They do maple syrup and a handful of other food sources. And then we'll go to Wayne Whittier of Sutton Whittier Farm, founded in 1845. Then John Hornstra of Norwell's Hornstra Farm, founded in 1950, which does dairy. And then lastly, we will be Theresa Cohen of Oxford Farm, founded in 2018. Then we'll open up to questions. So each farmer will have 2 or 3 minutes to kind of speak, share with us who they are, why they're in the business, and then talk about the struggles and how this tax will not be beneficial to their family farm. So Ben, if you could share with the group why you're on this call today. Thank you.
Hi. Yes, good morning. Thanks for having me. Boston Hill Farm is located in North Andover. It's an eastern Massachusetts farm, and I'm a 12th generation farmer myself. And we farm because we like doing it. It's a great way to live and raise a family. It's not an easy way to make a living, obviously, with the prices and everything continually rising. And we look at the CPI and Producers Price Index at 11.2% now, and the CPI at 8.5%. So I think any additional taxes that are levied on farmers or any businesses that support agriculture, it's going to make them less competitive going forward into the future, and that translates into higher prices for consumers and producers, honestly. And so I think that makes it a little bit makes us somewhat uncompetitive, and trying to find labor in this market is very difficult. I don't know if that's helpful.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we'll take questions at the end too. The next speaker is Leo from Cape Cod. Thank you, Leo.
Oh, thanks for having me. Just a little bit of my background. I grew up on a pig farm. I'm not, most of my relatives were still in Greece when a lot of these gentlemen and their families started their farms here in Massachusetts in the 1800s. But certainly my grandparents had a pig farm in 1910. They started it. It was on Route 1 in Saugus, right where the Hilltop Steakhouse is. If any of our guests know anything about Route 1, know about the Hilltop Steakhouse, it was an amazing place to grow up as a young child. We had quite a few pigs there. We were one of the largest piggeries in New England at the time. So I'm here today to tell you that over the years now in my 60s, not only have I attended many of my own family personal funerals, I'm sad to say that I have attended many of my friends and fellow farmers' farm funerals. My grandparents particularly, they lost their farm to urban sprawl. They lost their farm to government regulations. My grandparents asked me to please not get into agriculture. They helped me get an education in engineering, but it was my love for the land and my love to bring up my daughter in a situation where she would learn about farming and animals and the land. I came to the Cape and started a cranberry business, got involved in the cranberry industry. You're right. I don't believe that many of the farmers that are either on this program today or here in Massachusetts are faced with making an income of $1 million a year. However, I cannot stress enough how this tax will impact our industry. Back in 1840, here on the Cape, Captain Hall started the commercial cranberry industry by packaging cranberries in wooden barrels and selling them across the world. Today, I package my cranberries in large tractor trailers, and I'm affiliated with a company here in Carver, Mass, that would take them and make them into sweetened dried cranberries. And then we would market them throughout not only the Commonwealth, but really the country and the world. That company is no longer doing business in Massachusetts anymore. Similar to how you mentioned Horizon Milk, they have sold to a Canadian company. Now I'm expected to put my cranberries in a tractor trailer and send them up to Canada to be processed. Again, being certified organic, this has really impacted how we're going to do and move forward here on our farm. I don't have an outlet for my cranberries. In order to try to, and as you mentioned, raise some money and try to keep the farm, I have sold off lots of land, residential lots of land. And quite frankly, I paid more in taxes in the last couple of years than I've made in the last 20 years. So I can't stress enough how people have to look out of the box when they're looking at proposals such as this. It's not just those millionaires that are making X amount of dollars a year. It has a trickle-down effect when large companies and large businesses no longer want to do business in this state. It's going to affect me, who quite honestly has never seen $1 million of income in family farm products in my 20 years in the cranberry business. But this is going to affect me, I guarantee it. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Leo. That was very passionate. Well said. Bob Beckwith from Granville, Hilltown Pork. Bob, I believe you were muted. He's joining us via old-fashioned telephone. So Bob, if you can't spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about why you're here today.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me. I sixth generation, own through our family, have 300 acres in the western part of the state. Vice president of Hampden County Farm Bureau. The most immediate problem farmers are facing already happened last year, that the AG, there was a case that does time and a half for over 40 hours for harvesting and determining, let's just say bale hay, and the hay gets baled and you go to put it in the barn and your 8 hours are up, then it's time and a half to harvest. And this is a nail that's very deep in all the farmers left in Massachusetts that's already in place that we have to struggle with. And now another tax would be just, you would see a lot of farmers just throw up their hands, and you would have houses. And I'm not kidding aside that Massachusetts is a 98% consuming state. We don't produce anywhere near what it would to fill the population of the state. And it doesn't seem to be a lot to protect what's left. And I'm thinking that we're heading towards, we rely on other states to feed us, and with the trucking shortages and animal prices will be, and they're already through the roof, whether it's meat, veggies, anything. But we will rely on everybody to feed us. And with the milk and everything, I can foresee this coming in the future, which is not very good for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. The next person is going to be Matt Fitzgerald in Methuen, Mann Orchard.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me here today. Like Paul had mentioned, my family farm started 1877. My siblings and I are fifth generation. We are located roughly 3 miles from the New Hampshire border, which makes it for a very interesting business climate up here. Where my farm is located is actually off of a connecting highway from Route 93 and Interstate 495. So we watch the traffic every day at north. We have close to 50 employees year round. We operate a farm stand every day except for roughly 12 days a year. So the staffing crunches and the overtime regulations, we feel it immensely. And I have 2 other seasonal businesses as well that are employing close to 40 people amongst the 2 of them. And the more we grow, the more we build. My siblings and I were on the younger end of it. I'm 38, and a lot of farmers never see $1 million in income. Well, growing up, by gosh, that was my goal. Was I was going to make $1 million. We were going to feed people. Seemed a lot easier at 8 years old than it does at 38, and a lot more realistic back then. And to see it now, to see the constant regulations, the de-incentivizing of people to grow and build is just very disheartening. And we do a lot of business with a lot of farms in New Hampshire, right over the border. We do a large wholesale pie business. And when I talk business with those farmers, you would think we're in two different industries. They're talking about actual agricultural issues, crop timing, temperature, weather conditions. I can't even get to that part of the conversation just because I'm looking at all the regulations that are constantly getting rolled out here. And to have another tax like this, to have another reason for people not to want to operate in this state, not to want to grow a business. I'm not even looking at selling any land at all. We're growing families. We're having children. We live right here on the property. But at some point, everything gets squeezed. At some point, people are just going north. From our standpoint, at some point it does not become, we don't have the ability to operate here anymore. Then what do we do then? What do people do then? What does anyone with a pass-through company do? And the majority of small businesses in Massachusetts are pass-through, our S corporations, our LLCs, and we employ the vast majority of people in this state. We all start going away. I don't see how the entire situation continues to operate. So it's just very disheartening that there is another layer being placed on us and something else that we're going to have to another hurdle to jump over with moving forward. And it makes a lot of us younger guys really consider how big are you going to try and grow something? How successful are you going to try and be? Because who are you actually doing it for? You know, we're here every single day. We work, and our spouses understand that, our friends understand that, and you know, you start to look around, scratch your head, what is it actually for? And it's just very disheartening that we're here once again looking at something like this. So I appreciate everything Mass Fiscal is doing. I appreciate all these farmers that are on here and the hundreds of other farmers across the Commonwealth that every day, rain, snow, sleet, or shine, we're working. Nothing stops us.
Thank you, Matt. That's a great speech. Leon Ripley from Granville as well, Maple Corner Farm. Leon is joining us via telephone. Leon, if you could unmute yourself and share with the group why you're here. Leon, we can't hear you, so I don't know if you are able to unmute.
How about now?
You're great. We hear you. Thank you, Leon.
Yes, this is Leon Ripley from Granville, Mass. We settled here that my great-grandfather did in 1812 up the road in Blandford. We have approximately 600 acres. We do maple sugaring. We tap 4,000 taps and make about 1,000 to 1,500 gallons of syrup each year. We run a cross-country ski center during the winter months, along with a blueberry farm in the summer, and we make and sell hay to horse customers. We are basically eighth generation. My granddaughter and her dad are part of the operation here today, and we hope to continue the farm. It's one of those difficult decisions, how to pay all the taxes that are due each year on an average, and we will never make $1 million to deal with that part of the bill. But if we can't succeed in all ventures, we're probably going to have to sell some of the property eventually, and that would affect us. The additional 5% would be an enormous burden. We sell the property if we need to someday, or my grandkids do, so that we look forward to continue the best we can. But as all the other speakers are saying, the price of fertilizer went from roughly about $458 this year to $958. Gas gone from $3 roughly to over $4. It's just making it more difficult to make a profit and stay in business. As time goes on, we may have to sell some property to continue to run the operation. If need be, this tax will greatly affect our income from the sale of some property or to settle the estate or whatever. So thank you, and enjoy participating.
Thank you, Leon. The next speaker will be Wayne Whittier from Sutton, Whittier Farm.
Thank you. Whittier Farms was started in 1945. I am the fourth generation. I work with two daughters, the fifth, coming along, their spouses interested. I have a son that's currently not at the farm, but hoping to see him come back someday. And like many of you talked about selling land, I watched the previous generation do that, sell off some land to pay bills, to pay taxes. They got whacked pretty hard on income tax for that property that was sold. And in 2010, we made a decision to preserve through the APR 380 acres. So our farm, most of it is under that preservation, hoping that the next generation will carry on and be able to be 2% of the production that this state needs. Some of you talked about the gas and the fuel prices and employees and moving stuff with trucks back and forth from states, 2 or 3 states away really doesn't make a lot of sense if your market's here and you can produce it here. It should be cheaper. My concern with additional taxes is how you get the next generation to stay interested enough to do the production, to work against the other challenges if the money is just taken through taxes and income in that. We currently employ people from 7 different families. They have a job, they pay income tax on the money that they get paid. Why would you tax additionally to the business that's supplying those jobs and those benefits within the state? You know, we do a bunch of different things to stay diversified. So when we hire somebody full-time, it's usually full-time 12 months of the year. We do have seasonal, we do have part-time, but there's 8 of us that are full-time. And like the previous speaker said, you know, it's 365 days a year. We don't open to the public every day, but we're here working because we have animals, because we have things in the greenhouse. We have equipment to fix that it may have to get fixed on a Sunday, so it's ready to go when somebody comes in on Monday morning to run. So it was mentioned earlier too that businesses that we deal with, a lot of the products that we offer through the retail store here that are not ours, we try to do business with local businesses, support one another so that the community as a whole is stronger. And that's where we've started to head more and more and more in the last 20 years. We have some great relationships with small businesses, and they're also concerned about, what if I need to sell my business, or if I pass it through to my offspring to continue, what are the tax implications along the line? So I really hope it doesn't pass.
Thank you, Wayne. The next speaker will be John Hornstra, dairy farmer from Hornstra Farm in Norwell. And then Theresa Cohen will be the last speaker from Oxford Farm in Central Mass. So thank you, John.
Thank you for having me. We have been in business now since 1915, and we milk cows and bottle milk and deliver to over 5,000 homes, door-to-door delivery. And I think people need to be aware of how important local farms are. We really, our customers all thought we were really important when the pandemic happened. And we were kind of the only milk around. I feel that Massachusetts farmers, is one of the speakers said that, you know, very small portion of our food comes from Massachusetts farms, and most of it comes from out of state. That's kind of a shame, because we're preserving with our APR program, like Wayne Whittier mentioned. There is preserved land for farming, and I feel that there are farmers that have the ability to do this, but I think it's discouraging to them to have all these extra taxes. I know of a man that got old, he milked cows his whole life, and everyone else has retirement. Well, his retirement was his land. And when he went to sell it, after he paid his taxes, there wasn't a heck of a lot left. And we lost one farm. Our family developed our first farm in Hingham in 1980 because my parents couldn't afford to pay the capital gains taxes when they sold it. So I bought this APR farm that's preserved for agriculture in 2009. And I'm hoping my son, 5th generation, is here working alongside me every day. He's bottling milk right now. I'm really hopeful to be able to pass it on to him, and he can pass it on to his children. It's a very strong business. We have a wonderful following, and we're very lucky and fortunate to be in Massachusetts where our customers are. I just really feel that any additional taxes and passing a business on can be kind of complicated too, to the next generation. So, you know, folks in the legislature really ought to, you know, we have all these programs to help farmers, grant programs, and it's 61A to give you a tax break on your property taxes. We've got all these wonderful programs to promote farming in this state. And I feel like if there's anything the legislature can do to promote agriculture even more by helping with this tax. I think it might be a nice tool to keep some people in farming for the next generation and hopefully for generations to come. I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Our
Thank
last
you.
speaker is Theresa Cohen, who's a little unique, started her own farm in 2018. And then we'll take questions from the media. Thank you, Theresa.
Hello. I have to say, I have a 130-acre farm. We do animals, beef, chicken, lamb. We have a vegetable area, and we hope to branch out from that. I feel in awe to be in the company of these other long-standing farmers. As somebody who's worked in other businesses, I would say that not just farming, but many small businesses and even large businesses consider some of the worth of their business to be their assets over their sales. And if this were to pass, I would just see a lot of farmers immediately try to sell before the law is enacted. I think you would lose a lot of farms. I think that Massachusetts has a provincial culture. People are into local farms and their local land, and they're very village oriented, and there is a history here of farms. And to John made an excellent point that, the state does so many things on one hand to help farmers, and it's just cutting them out at the knees at the other end. It really makes no sense. It, to some extent, invalidates a lot of the other efforts that the state goes to help farmers, which we really appreciate. So, and the other topic of the day is climate change. Why is there such an emphasis in the state on climate change when you're going to import food from California and the Midwest, when some of that can be produced here? I mean, that invalidates all the state's climate change issues, efforts as well. So it's in many ways counterproductive to come at this group whose asset is dearly tended to and cared for, and whose asset is an important part of the value of their business. So I certainly hope that this does not pass.
Thank you,
Thank
Theresa. So you've heard from family farmers, over 850 years of generational farming here. I want to open up to any questions from media. I want to be mindful of people's times too. So if you have a question, just unmute yourself, state your name, direct a question to anyone that you like, and then we can take it from there.
Paul, I have a question. It's Bruce Mole from Commonwealth Magazine. A lot of the comments from the various farmers were about the tough conditions in general that farming faces right now. And some of you sort of touched on how this so-called millionaire tax would affect you. Matt Fitzgerald, you talked that I think you are an S corporation or LLC, and you started to talk a little about how it would directly affect you. Others talked about how it might affect people you sell your product to, and they might leave the state or go elsewhere. Matt, could you talk a little bit more about how this specific tax would affect you?
Yes, so with an S corp, everything comes back to the owner. So everything, there's no big corporate umbrella that's operating as an entity. I mean, my siblings and I are at the brass tacks of it, the entity. So everything just gets passed through. So then if anything is to get sold by any of the farms that are owned in that way, which the majority of the small businesses in the Commonwealth are, majority of small businesses across the country are, it all falls back down on us. And like many of the other speakers today said, we deal with other small businesses, and many of the small businesses are our suppliers in the area, and they're much larger than us. They have greater sales than us. Something like this, where your business is a warehouse, they're going to be able to pick up and just move right out. I don't know. It's just very hard to think. I mean, we planted 36,000 apple trees over the past 4 years. If someone has a way of picking those up and moving them, let me know, because I don't know how to do it. So everything just ends up trickling down, and you do something like this, it affects the real big guys, and then it affects the medium-sized guys, and it rolls its way all the way down, and it just ends up hitting us, on a day-to-day basis, and if anyone ever goes to sell.
You told me a story also about how a couple decades ago, you guys did sell parcel land to reinvest in the business. And if this tax was around, it would have tremendously impacted you. Are you comfortable sharing that story?
Yeah, so in 2006, we had sold part of our land here in Methuen. We're in a very unique area. I like to say my business doesn't fit in. I share a stoplight with a Market Basket and a Walmart. My neighbor is Target. Across the street's Home Depot. There was a Stop and Shop across the street. So, I mean, not only do we have the competition in New Hampshire, we have all that competition as well. And, it's a very highly sought after section of land. So we had sold some land to Target back in 2006. And in reality, all that really did was allow us to build our current facility that we have here on the same piece of land, and, continue to grow the business, because it wasn't just going to be my grandparents who had retired and then my parents. It was now myself and my two siblings. So you now have, 4 households you're trying to feed. And we had done that. And I mean, if this tax had gone through back then, would the sale have happened? More than likely. It wasn't, my sale to do, it was the generations before me. But I don't know if I would be sitting in this office here today doing what I do. I don't know if the reinvestment would have happened into continuing, the oldest business in Methuen. And it's very disheartening to think that something like that, totally out of our control, would be the reason we would have to, have even that thought cross your mind.
Thank you, Matt. I think Leo Bruce had his hand up. He wanted to share something. Leo, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm the gentleman that mentioned how this not only may not affect some small farmers. I don't have a large family. I have one daughter. I'm going through my estate plan. As I mentioned earlier, my parents did not stay in farming. They couldn't because of the pressures back then. Fast forward to today, though, I'm looking now at selling off land. I'm on Cape Cod. I don't have the acreage that some of these other gentlemen and young lady have off Cape, but my land is valued probably 300 or 400 times more an acre than theirs is, because it's Cape Cod. I have a lot of people that want to buy me out. I got a 33-acre parcel right now that, under the current capital gain laws, there's no way I'm going to sell it and give that kind of money to the government. So I'm going through a process where I'm going to be donating that property to a long-term local school here to turn it into an agricultural education center. But just to give you an idea, I sold off one small little house for $400,000 last year. I just wrote a check to the government for $100,000, $107,000 to be exact. They already took 1/3 of what I saved for on this house away. At what point? I mean, how much more do you need? And at what point am I going to say, you know what? It's not worth me selling this if I'm going to end up paying even more in capital gains next year. I might as well just give it away. Because again, I'm in a position where I don't have a big family. I don't have anyone that will inherit it except for my daughter. And I don't have anyone that's going to take over this farm. They're just not going to do it. I don't care if you have APR land. I don't care if you give land free to people in Massachusetts. Today's world is very difficult to get someone in their 20s and 30s that wants this kind of lifestyle, because they're not going to be making $150,000 a year like they can as an engineer or a computer tech. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Any other questions for media folks?
Hey, Paul, how are you? It's Erin from Mass Live. I was just wondering if you could update us on where things stand with the lawsuit to the language for the revenues that would be captured from this millionaire's tax.
Okay, so for my farmers friends, this is not related to why we're here today, but it deals with this issue. Aaron, I could send you an email with all the timeline.
Great.
That'll probably be best off this call, but it is ongoing. The court is supposed to make a decision in June, but I'll send you the timeline.
Thank you.
No problem. Aaron, do you have any questions for the farmers?
I mean, just kind of to Bruce's point, I guess it seems like a lot of this is more of sort of an indirect effect than a direct effect. Is that accurate?
Well, I think definitely all indirect. Some of them will be direct. And if any of them want to sell land, it will be once again back directly to them. I think that goes without saying. And, you know, I've mentioned this before, but when I save for my retirement, money comes on my paycheck into a retirement account. For a lot of these folks here, their assets are their retirement. And adding a 80% surcharge tax to their retirement account is just unfair for when they want to sell land to retire.
Thank you.
Wayne, I think you had a question or you wanted to say something?
So just a comment. I was involved in the finances of when we sold our APR on 380 acres. And that that check was relatively large. Most money I've ever seen in my lifetime and probably ever will. But if somebody does take advantage of the APR program and sells a fairly large parcel of development rights under it, that income could very well be over $1 million and subject to this tax. So instead of paying 5% income, you're going to pay a much higher amount. And that might deter people from staying in agriculture, giving the opportunity, as we did, to the next generations to come, to stay in and get rid of some of the pressures from outside by having the APR. But that's an income without completely selling the land off. And that has me very concerned as to whether the state's programs that grant money and stuff like that would be considered as income in this tax. And that's a very scary unknown, I guess, to me right now.
Thank you, Wayne. I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. We've been on for about 45 minutes. So I know Chris and Matt, if you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask. All right. Matt, are you unmuting? Do you have a question? All right. Well, I think you guys did a great job today. You left the last two meeting people speechless, I believe. But thank you all for your time. This will be on our YouTube page later. So if you have any, if any of the reporters wanted to go look at any of the answers, feel free to. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate taking a step away from your busy day. And hopefully the people in Massachusetts will be better informed when they go to vote on this tax increase proposal. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.